in going through history, and I know when we go through school, we hear a lot about Albert Einstein, and from our teachers, nobody really goes into his background and how he thought and things like that. Now, in 1922, Albert Einstein won the Nobel Prize in Physics, which I know if you start studying physics, you're talking about a lot of work, and it's hard, very hard. But then, right after he got that award, he left with his wife on a 5.5-month trip around various parts of the world that he wanted to see and meet some of the people and see how they lived and all that, because he was really, the way I understand it, he was from Germany, and I don't think he traveled that much, but he was a German-born Jewish scientist, and he was targeted by the Nazis, but he became known as an advocate for human rights. He once said in an interview, being a Jew myself, perhaps I can understand and empathize with how black people feel as victims of discrimination. And he thought he was against discrimination his whole life, but actually, as we're going to follow him around his world travels during these 4 or 5.5 months with his wife, and everybody he talked to, they say he discriminated. He discriminated against people and things like that, especially in different parts of the world. So he really wasn't an angel like he wants you to make on to think when you first try to look at try to study him a little bit. And he started moving around, and he was in, this was in his 40s. He was in his 40s when he got that Nobel Prize in 1922. And started off, he went to Hong Kong, and he said the Chinese are incapable of being trained to think logically, and that they specifically have no talent for mathematics. Because we know he was good in mathematics. That's one of the reasons he won that award. And then he said, I noticed how little difference there was, this was in Hong Kong, between men and women. I don't understand what kind of fatal attraction Chinese women possess that enthralls the corresponding men to such an extent that they are incapable of defending themselves against the formidable blessings of offspring. So, then he started moving around mainly in China, and he said, as far as what he could see about the Chinese people, he said they were industrious, filthy, and obtruse people. And it says Chinese don't sit on benches while eating, but squat like Europeans do when they relieve themselves out in the leaky woods. All this occurs quietly and demurely. Even the children are spiritless and look obtuse. It would be a pity for these Chinese to supplant all other races, because for the likes of us, the mere thought of unspeakably dreary. Then he moved to Shanghai, and there he met some people, and when he got to Shanghai, there was a Chinese funeral going on, and he described it as barbaric for our taste.
Wow.
And said the streets were swarming with people. In the air there was a stench of never-ending manifold varieties.
Wow.
Even though those reduced to working like horses never give the impression of conscious suffering. A peculiar herd-like nation, he writes, often more like automations than people. So this was when he was moving around the world after he got that award in 1922. Then he went to Japan. He said that Japan were decent, altogether very appealing, he writes, adopting a more flattering term. Intellectual needs of this nation seem to be weaker than their artistic one's natural disposition. Then he went to Ceylon, which is a British colony which became Sri Lanka. He said the residents of this place live in great filth and considerable stench at ground level, adding that they do little and need little, the simple economic cycle of life. So while they said from the beginning, it's like, you know, he was a nice man and everything like that, but from following him around, he was sort of a racist too. I mean, he definitely, as we talked about going through these countries, you could see he really didn't like these people. He thought they were just people, but like they lived in filth and things like that. When he went to China, though, China tried to give him a good handshake and all that and make on like he was a pretty good guy, but the Chinese already knew that he didn't like him. They were saying that he was a racist because he constantly made comments about these other people around the world, and you could tell he had racism toward the Chinese. And they said by his travel visits and what he wrote in a book on his travel, he said you could tell he's a racist. And then he was strange in his ways. Like, he had an 11-year marriage with a woman, and the marriage was sort of failing some. So he went to his wife and he said, "Look, from now on you're going to keep all the rooms, including mine, tidy. You're going to bring me 3 meals a day. And you're going to stop talking when requested, with no expectations that he would ever return the favor." A few months later, she left him. They were divorced in 1919.
Wow.
Now some of the things that he did, though, he was for like blacks in a way, because he joined a committee in 1931 to protest the injustice of Scottsboro boys' trial in Alabama, in which African-American youths were falsely accused of raping 2 white women. So in that case, he was on the side of the black people. And then in 1946, at a commencement speech at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, he declared there is a separation of colored people from white people in the United States. It's a disease of white people. I do not intend to be quiet about this. So I think that gives us some background about what this man was like, because I heard his name my whole life from going to school up. I knew nothing about his personal life. I knew nothing about traveling, the wife, things like that, and how he thought and how he felt toward other peoples of the world. Thank you.